Good afternoon. I'm Michael Sanders, and this broadcast is coming to you from Canterbury Woods in Pacific Grove. One of the joys of Christmas time is to listen to old and familiar music. Another of the joys is to hear something new and unheard of before. So I hope you'll have both of that kind of pleasure today. Some old familiar pieces, some new pieces, and some pieces in between. I'm going to begin with music by Tchaikovsky from a set of 12 pieces that the title usually is translated the seasons, though probably the months is a better name for it. I'll play the December month. Tchaikovsky was commissioned to write a set of 12 pieces that would be published in the monthly issues of a music magazine. The publisher gave him a theme for each of the 12 months and also a quotation from Russian literature to accompany it. And Tchaikovsky accepted all of those. For December, not too surprisingly, he chose the theme was Christmas, and the theme was an excerpt from poet Zhukovsky. It's a rather mysterious quotation, and I'll read it to you. Once upon a Christmas night, the girls were telling fortunes, taking their slippers off their feet and throwing them out of the gate. I think it probably loses something in translation, don't you? Tchaikovsky's great Christmas music, of course, is the Nutcracker Ballet that came almost 2 decades later. But this is a waltz, and it could almost belong to the music of Nutcracker. There are no slippers in it. But here is the December month from The Seasons by Tchaikovsky. Thank you. Now I'd like to play a piece that had its first performance on Christmas Day in Rome in a hotel room. It was written by Franz Liszt. He had been accompanied by his granddaughter, Danielle, to Rome, and Liszt wrote this set of 12 pieces for his granddaughter. He called it Christmas Tree, the Christmas Tree. And the movement I'd like to play, he called the Shepherds at the Manger. This is a setting of an old Latin carol, In Dulce Jubilo, in Sweet Rejoicing is its literal title. We sing this carol sometimes to the words, good Christian men rejoice. I suppose nowadays we sing it to good Christian folk rejoice. But anyway, this is a setting of In Dulce Jubilo that Liszt called Shepherds at the Manger, and it comes from a set of 12 pieces, The Christmas Tree by Franz Liszt. Thank you. Now I'd like to play a work by a living French composer. His name is Guy Miai. I believe he's now retired, but he had a full career as a teacher, as an organist, as a conductor, as well as a composer. This comes from a set of 6 noëls, the French word for carols, 6 carols that come from different parts of France. The first one is from the western part of France, Poitou. The second one comes from the eastern coast near Dijon. It's called Noël Bisontin, which I believe means from the region of Besançon. And the third of the pieces that I'd like to play is simply called Noël Nouveau-Lait. So that is translated, let me refer to my notes, as we sing it sometimes as "Sing We Now of Christmas." So 3 French carols, very brief but beautifully set by Guy Miai. Thank you. The next work is by Johann Sebastian Bach. It's one of the amazing 64 movements of the Christmas oratorio. That's a somewhat misleading title. The oratorio really is 6 cantatas for the 6 feast days of the Christmas season in the Lutheran liturgy. The movement I will play is the first movement of the 2nd cantata. So it was performed on the 2nd feast day of Christmas, which was December 26th. And that day celebrates the Annunciation to the shepherds. And in fact, the title of the individual cantata is "There Were Shepherds Abiding in the Field." This is, as I say, the only movement of the 64 that is purely instrumental, the only movement without singers involved. Albert Schweitzer, who wrote a great deal about Bach, said that this movement represents the spiritual concert. There's a quartet of 4 oboes that represent the shepherds in the field, and the violins and the flutes represent the angelic choirs. And the combination of these 2 sources of music create the heavenly concert of the divine and the earthly meeting at that one wonderful moment. So here is the first movement of the 2nd cantata. It's sometimes called the Shepherd's Symphony or the Pastoral Symphony by Bach from the Christmas oratorio. Thank you. Thank you very much. Now for something a little bit different. 1965, there was a TV producer driving home from an appointment with Charles Schulz, the cartoonist and creator of the very popular Peanuts cartoon series. He turned on the radio and he heard on that a song called "Cast Your Fate to the Wind," which he liked very much. That recording was actually the B-side of a bossa nova, what was hoped to be a big bossa nova hit, featuring a Bay Area musician named Vince Guaraldi. Well, it seemed like all the radio DJs liked very much more the B-side than they did the A-side, which sort of sunk without a trace. But "Cast Your Fate Onto the Wind" got a fair amount of radio play. Anyway, Mr. Mendelssohn got in touch eventually with Vince Guaraldi and hired him to write the music for the documentary that he was about to produce. And a couple weeks later, Mendelssohn got a call from Guaraldi, and he said, "I've just written this music, and I want to play it for you." And Mendelssohn, knowing how uncertain and unfair the acoustics of the telephones were, said, "Okay, I'll come over and hear it in your studio." And Guaraldi said, "No, I've got to play this for somebody right now or I will burst." So he did play it. Mendelssohn did like it very much. And that and some other music went into this documentary, which, as far as I can learn, was made but never shown because apparently it couldn't get financing. However, later on, Mendelssohn was asked to do the very first of the Peanuts special television programs. And of course, Guaraldi wrote the music. So from that music, I would like to play three wonderful pieces. The first one is "Christmas Time Has Come Again." The second one is "Linus and Lucy." That's the piece that Guaraldi played over the telephone. And the third piece is "Skating." Skating. So three pieces from the Charlie Brown Christmas special by Vince Guaraldi. Thank you. Thank you. Now I'd like to play music by, I believe, a French composer about whom I know essentially nothing. His name is Michel Allard. He wrote a great deal of piano music. As far as I know, he's still living. I would like to play the first of three pieces that he calls Noëls. That's that old French word for carol. It seems to be a combination of various French and perhaps Canadian carols. Anyway, Noël number 1 by Michel Allard. Now I'd like to play a piece that Brahms wrote in the last year of his life, one of 11 chorale preludes for the organ. This is a setting of an old hymn, first harmonized by Pretorius in the 17th century. We sing this hymn to the words, "Lo, how a rose ere blooming." But the tune is very deeply buried in Brahms' beautiful setting. So here is "Lo, how a rose ere blooming" from Johannes Brahms' 11 chorale preludes. I see a warning message on this screen that the batteries are running low. I don't really know what that means, but if we get cut off, this should be available as a YouTube, and I hope the word will get out to people where you might be able to find that YouTube message. Anyway, I have another waltz. We began with a Russian waltz. I'd like to end with a Viennese waltz. There's going to be lots of wonderful Christmas music coming up here at Canterbury Woods. Next week, Karen Robinson is playing one of her charming programs from her own apartment. The following week, Jax Stanley is playing both clarinet and saxophone, though as far as I know, not simultaneously. And he will be joined by our multi-instrumentalist Bill Englander and our wonderful singer Beth Story. And then on New Year's Eve day, that is December 31st, I'll play an afternoon program at 3 o'clock of music from Vienna, music by Johann Strauss the Younger. So now I'd like to end with another Viennese waltz by Franz Lehar, the composer of The Merry Widow and many other wonderful tunes. This is a waltz he calls the Christmas Waltz. really sorry that you couldn't bring